Welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast, where today's thought leaders discuss how they're using the latest social media strategies and technologies in marketing, sales, customer service, and HR. Get ready to be inspired as our guests contribute to your digital transformation through their stories, knowledge, and insights into what works in today's digitally connected world. And now, here's Bernie Borges, your host of the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey there, welcome to episode 211. This is Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso and host of the Social Business Engine podcast. Hey, thanks for listening. My guest on this episode is Betsy Rohtbart, Vice President of Digital Marketing at Vonage. So on this episode, Betsy shares valuable lessons that she's learned in building the modern marketing team through her experience both on the agency side and on the brand side. Betsy's insights can be applied to any marketing leader in any industry that's tasked with building and evolving a marketing team that needs both digital and offline marketing skills. Now, this episode is sponsored by Frost & Sullivan. Vengreso is proud to be a partner with Frost & Sullivan on the 19th annual Marketing Executive Mind Exchange event, Marketing Impact 2025. We are going to be moderating a think tank discussion that's focused on creating a consistent omni-channel customer journey. So join us at Marketing Impact 2025, taking place July 16th through the 18th, 2018 in Nashville, Tennessee, where you can mix and mingle with forward-thinking marketing executives and thought leaders. Now, we are an event partner, so we can extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso subscribers. Just visit frost.com/MAR, M-A-R, and use discount Vengreso at registration to get your $250 savings. And don't worry, we will link that up in our show notes page at vengreso.com/podcast. Again, just visit the page and go to episode 211. Now, here's my conversation with Betsy Rohtbart, Vice President, Digital Marketing at Vonage. Well, Betsy, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Bernie, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let's begin with an introduction to your company, Vonage, well-known brand, and your role at the company.
So I am the Vice President for Digital Marketing at Vonage. My role, my digital marketing department is hybrid. I manage both the web development function and the Vonage.com website, as well as our demand gen department, responsible for all of our digital and sometimes not digital campaigns.
And Vonage is a communications company, right?
Vonage is a communications company. We are unique in our space in our ability to provide both unified communications platform as a service, as well as communications APIs due to our acquisition of a smaller company called Nexmo.
I did not know about that. Okay, cool. Again, well-known brand, and now we know a little bit about your role at Vonage. So what we're here to talk about is something that's a little bit different in the Social Business Engine podcast. You know, we're all about digital transformation, and of course, we live in a world of digital transformation, and so many businesses and industries are being disrupted and are going through change and unpredictable, market conditions. And the role of the marketing department has been evolving. And really, the marketing department is more important than ever before. So let's talk about how do companies know whether or not they even have the right marketing organization structure? What does that really take? What's it look like to have a 21st century marketing organization?
I think the first question any company has to ask themselves, pretty much for any department makeup, is what's our goal? What are we trying to achieve? And work back from there, building the capabilities and hiring the expertise to achieve that goal. And in doing this, what you'll begin to see is that your marketing department won't look like anybody else's because your goal should be unique to what your company can deliver.
Interesting. It reminds me a little bit of the Good to Great book, if you're familiar with that. And one of the things that Jim Collins talks about is start with the who. Who are the right people that you need on the bus, right? So what you're saying is understand your goals, and then who are the skills that are needed to achieve those goals. Okay, so once you've identified that, then what next?
So I envision the great digital marketing department as Tetris, and that's probably more because I'm a child of the 80s, and that's what the inside of my brain looks like. But if you remember Tetris, pieces fall from the sky and they're different shapes and sizes. Some are long and thin, others are zigzaggy, and some are those L-shaped. But when they all fit together, they form a box. And that fully formed box with no holes in the middle is the perfect Tetris game. Some people, as you hire them, are vertical or horizontal. They're either pure generalist or pure specialist. And then you have some in your department that are a little of both. They mostly generalize in one area, but they've picked up some expertise in another that allows them to work more cross-functionally. And in a good marketing department, you need both. You need a mix. You need a mix of pure specialists that are going to drive optimization and efficiency in one area. You need generalists that can look across all of the functions to make sure that they're working together effectively. And then you do need people that are connective tissue between one or two areas, because chances are you'll have a couple of areas that work more closely than others. So in my role, I'm really fortunate that I have demand gen specialists and generalists, and I have web development specialists and generalists, and then I have user experience expertise that can really span, and I have content expertise that can span. And I think the best part of this, and this might be unique to Vonage and unique to the Vonage digital marketing team, and I hope it's something that everyone in my position can say throughout their career, is most people I work with want to learn more. They want to grow either in their position or grow expertise in other areas. So at no point is it a static box. The pieces are always changing.
Yeah. What about business acumen? What role does that play in the modern marketing department?
I think I've struggled with this throughout my career because I moved from the agency to the client side. And I said at the time that I made the transition that I felt that I could be a better marketer if I worked directly for the business that I was representing, because I would be completely embedded in the business strategy.
Yeah, it's only one client, right? As opposed to multiple clients when you're on the agency side.
Precisely. But then I found myself perhaps becoming not as sharp in the daily skills for media planning and media buying, understanding those constant changes in algorithms, participating in betas, always seeing the next best thing for targeting. So it's has to be a mix in marketing where everyone who sits inside of the client organization must be, I would say, fully immersed in what the business goals are. Will only be successful if they can also frame those goals to agency partners so those partners can be successful delivering. Mm-hmm. So I think, when I left the agency side, I blamed the agency for my inability to get close to the business, but I should have blamed myself.
Mm. Okay. And how did you come to that understanding, that realization, Betsy?
Well, the benefit of 10 years of hindsight is always great. As I grew in my career and even in my last couple of roles where actually it's been my responsibility to manage agency and vendor relationships, in managing those relationships, they were only more successful when they felt like partnerships. And I perhaps had not positioned myself as a partner when I was at the agency. But I think when I go in with the attitude that the people I work with, even if they don't carry my company's badge in their pocket, they're just as much working for the company as I am. And they should feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the role of quote unquote fit in the modern marketing department? Maybe
not unique to marketing, but every marketing department I've worked in, even, on the agency side, even when I was early in my career, it felt to some extent like a family. Functional or dysfunctional, marketing departments get very close. We spend a lot of time concepting together. I would say, though title structure might still exist, they become least hierarchical when you look across the company because a good idea can come from anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about fit and culture fit, we have to understand that, a candidate applying for a specific role has to actually check a couple of more boxes than what might be on the job description. Sure, they need to fulfill daily tasks, but they also need to be part of the family. They need to be trusted. They need to be able to build that trust, build those coalitions, build those relationships. And for that, each company does have a unique chemistry. And so somebody who might be completely qualified for a role but not gel will be unsuccessful. Somebody who might be a little less qualified for the role, but completely the right culture fit will be more successful. And similarly, the uber qualified candidate might apply for the same title at another company and be a superstar. So when you're recruiting, fit is a broad term, and it's not bullet points in a checklist and did you get your degree? It's, are you going to be able to sit with us for 6 hours with a bunch of Post-it notes and make magic?
So let me share what I think I just heard you say, Betsy. I want to make sure that I'm getting this right for our conversation, for my listener. I think I just heard you say that you'd rather hire someone that's the right culture fit, even if they're not necessarily the best candidate from the standpoint of all the technical qualifications you're looking for, as opposed to someone who's perhaps really strong on all the technical qualifications, but they're not the right culture fit.
Exactly. I think at the end of the day, there are many skills that can still be taught, but there are other things you're born with. And I can't control for the things that you're born with, but I could probably control for skills that you can acquire from classroom learning.
Mm-hmm. In the modern marketing organization, since so much of it is digital, not all of it, of course, but a lot of it.
Even my digital role isn't all digital.
Right. So in that regard, then, how do marketing teams stay current on best practices and technologies, et cetera?
So I don't want to devalue the value of training. Training is great. It is online webinars to keep skills sharp for analytics training. I've used Adobe Analytics, Core Metrics, Google Analytics throughout my career. It's absolutely critical to become an agile learner and to keep up to date on the new features and functions of those tools. That said, just because you can use the tool doesn't make you an analyst. So when I start to think about staying current or making sure everyone on the team is maximizing their ability to up level, I have to think about development plans more broadly. Not so much what does this person need to succeed tomorrow, but how will they want to be successful moving forward? And what can I do to help them? And so sometimes when I'll see a development plan that says, I want to become a more skilled analyst, and every marketer needs to be data-driven to be successful. I cannot say that enough. I have to sit down with that person and say, well, let's think this through. Do you need more training on the tool, or are the interpretive skills where you need to focus your efforts? And so everyone's to some extent a case by case. And I often have, many friends. And when we graduated from college, they became attorneys, and they studied so hard in law school. And then they studied so hard and took the bar. And then as soon as they took the bar, I suddenly see these CLE books hanging around because they have to do continuing education. And as I'm thumbing through them, and in the interest of full disclosure, I did spend a year as a paralegal and determine that legal studies were not for me. But as I thumb through them, I'm taken a little bit with, it's a little one size fits all. Everyone's learning the same cases. And if you're in a classroom with 20 people, you're getting one interpretation of the case. But in reality, when you see law applied in the real world, there is finesse and there's cross-reference between cases. And so the education wasn't fitting the practice. It's the same in marketing. You can up-level on skills. You can take all of the trainings online. You can take classroom trainings to learn technology. But ultimately, real-world application takes some element of finesse. And that's an observed trait. It's experienced over time. And so when I start to think about how to make myself a stronger marketer, how to help my marketing department become stronger, I have to really look individually at everyone to say, what do you want to achieve? What's your goal? Much like we think about with our company. And then we can think about how to get you there. But it's very rarely handing someone the same book.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to take a short break here. When we come back from the break, I want to talk about things that you have learned from the past. I know we've touched on that a little bit, but I want to dive deeper into that, Betsy. So let's pause here for a brief message from our sponsor, Frost & Sullivan. Vengreso is proud to be a partner with Frost & Sullivan on the 19th Annual Marketing Executive Mind Exchange event, Marketing Impact 2025. We'll be moderating a think tank discussion that's focused on creating a consistent omni-channel customer journey. I'm personally looking forward to the interactive and collaborative PowerPoint-free event to brainstorm, benchmark, and generate action plans with fellow marketing leaders across various industries. I encourage you to join us at Marketing Impact 2025, July 16th through the 18th, 2018, in Nashville, Tennessee, to mix and mingle with forward-thinking marketing executives and thought leaders. As an event partner, we're excited to extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso subscribers. Just visit frost.com/MAR, that's MAR, and use discount code Vengreso at registration. Hey, I look forward to seeing you in Nashville. All right, Betsy. Well, I'm enjoying this conversation, and certainly I want to remind my listener that what we're discussing here is a part of what you're going to be presenting at the Frost & Sullivan Marketing Impact 2025 event, which people just heard about in the commercial message. So let's keep unpacking this a little bit. What I want to hear from you, Betsy, is some of the things you've learned from your own career, sort of management cues, do's and don'ts on building a marketing organization.
I have the benefit of having had some really great leadership over the course of my career. And I've had leadership where I definitely took note and said, well, when I grow up and I become a leader, I'm not going to do it that way. Certainly, with more experience, you start to understand a little bit more where your leadership has been coming from. But at the end of the day, I think the first things first, I want everyone to know that in the course of history, there has never once been a marketing emergency. It's never happened. And it likely never will. In fact, if it does, I'd certainly like to understand what rises to that level. So, my first day at Vonage, actually, I sent an email out to my team introducing myself because I have some teammates that aren't in the same office. And I wanted everyone to understand that, we have to take what we do with a grain of salt. We can stand down and relax. There are tense moments. We have a lot to deliver. But at the end of the day, we should be able to look back and say that worked or that didn't. And then learn from there and move on, especially the stuff that doesn't work. You certainly want to. And to quote my CEO, Alan Mazarak, you want to fail forward. You want to learn from your mistakes and move on. So when I start to think back on the do's and don'ts of perhaps how I've been managed in the past or even how I function in the team in the past, definitely with the do's, help my team escalate things to me as they're becoming out of control, not once they've spun out of control. And for example, I had a manager a few years back and she was wonderful because if I escalated something to her, I felt like she made it disappear. I almost never heard about it again. If I couldn't get my hands on numbers I needed, suddenly they would magically appear. While I felt that was great, it certainly made me more productive and it certainly made me feel covered. It also kind of limited my ability to do things for myself. So when I say to my team, let me know when things are starting to spin out of control as opposed to coming to me once they're already completely off the rails, it gives me that opportunity to jump in and help my team navigate. And ultimately that's teach someone to fish and they can feed themselves for life.
Yeah, exactly. You read my mind. It's giving someone the learning opportunity as opposed to doing it for them.
Absolutely. And it's not to say I have all the answers. By far, I don't. But my perspective, because I've been outside for a while, might just be that breath of fresh air that's needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other do's? I'm sure we'll get to some, already covered a couple of don'ts in there. You're kind of mixing them in. So I don't mean to box you into do's and don'ts separately, but that's a really good one. So what's another one?
Another one is, I've touched on it. The marketing department should feel like a family. Dysfunction's okay, but it should be in the family. Meaning, and I actually said it on a meeting this morning, if we're not all clear on how we're approaching this objective, let's say it in this small space so we can all be aligned. Let's not wait till we're outside and upset and perhaps in the presence of others that might not have all the context to voice our concerns. And also, open up the avenue to do it privately if somebody doesn't want to say it in a big group. Mm-hmm. And that also kind of falls into a don't in the that I've experienced before. Often I feel like as managers, we almost want to box people in and kind of classify them so we know how to manage them better. And there are a lot of assessments out there that can help you do that. There's Insights Discovery and there's Myers-Briggs and there are all kinds of personality studies. And while I do feel like these have incredible value, I also think having your team do them as a team can be a double-edged sword because once you have these classifications and everyone has shared them, that's all you're ever going to be. You're always going to be that color or that set of letters. So when we start to talk about working as a team and working as a family, you have to understand how people function in big groups. And if it becomes unmanageable for you as a manager to help people function in a big group, then you have to take a step back and cut down the groups rather than giving yourself some sort of ethnographic principle by which to manage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I want to come back to something you said earlier about how, there's no such thing as a marketing emergency. In my years, I've said that in kind of different words, and I'll share it here. And I hope this doesn't offend anyone, because I'm not trying to take this to a level of drama that perhaps might offend someone. But I've always said, no one dies when a marketing program, campaign, or something isn't perfect. No one dies. And so from the learning experience, sometimes people will privately say, I feel like I'm in over my head. I feel like this is a technology or a technique or something that I just don't understand. How do you deal with moments like that?
Well, this actually kind of goes back to Team Tetris, because if you've pieced together your marketing department in a way that people have perhaps core expertise and that other thing they do, you might have the opportunity to look within your team or look within your network or look within your organization to help someone just over this minor hurdle. But if someone's coming to me and say, I'm in over my head, and they're reporting into me, I've failed too. I didn't stop when I should have. And if someone is so overwhelmed by perhaps the level of work or the caliber of work, then I've misread a situation and I have to have a hand in fixing that, even if it's taking it off their plates.
Okay. Some accountability then.
Absolutely.
That's excellent. And it's admirable, Betsy, because we don't see a lot of that in the modern corporate environment. So anything else that you want to cover on the do's and don'ts before I get to my summary?
Actually, Bert, the one thing I can say, as I've had experience across many companies, I actually have experienced a lot of interactions where my managers and my teammates will take accountability and will take responsibility when things have gone sideways. So I've benefited there a lot. And maybe I'm one of the lucky ones, but there's also a lead by example. If I'm willing to admit I've made a mistake, then somebody else will be willing to admit that they've made a mistake. Mm-hmm. I can't always blame my position or my mistakes on others. I have to take the responsibility on my own. And sometimes once I've done that, I notice others are more willing as well.
Absolutely. Well, you are fortunate, and I'm not here to surmise or assume that that's the exception or the norm, but certainly great companies have great culture, and that's a part of it. So I'm glad to hear for your sake that that's exactly what you've experienced. And clearly you are building that kind of culture within your own marketing team at Vonage.
I certainly hope so.
So what I'd like to do now, Betsy, is I want to get to the summary, and this is where I attempt to sort of hit the high points on what we discussed, and then I'll ask you to either fill in any holes, or if I jog your memory on a point that you want to make, please by all means make it, and then we'll bring this conversation to a wrap. And we began our conversation with a brief introduction to your company, Vonage. You're a communications company with lots of different offerings. And of course, people can learn more about that online. And your role is VP of Digital Marketing. And you said that it's a hybrid. It's both digital and also demand generation, some of which is non-digital. And the focus of our conversation was, how can a leader like yourself build a 21st century marketing organization in the face of such disruptive technologies and business climates? And so you began with the concept of the Team Tetris, where all the pieces come together to form a box, even though the pieces may look very, very different. You said that some people can be pure specialists, some are generalists, some are hybrid, and you really need all the above. You need them to be a mix. And you actually use the word, you need some people who are connective tissues that can cross all those functions. And I agree with you on that. People like content and user experience and digital and non-digital and so forth. And they should always want to learn and grow. You talked also about the need to stay current. You yourself said you went from an agency to the brand side. And one of the things you observed, you said, was that it was a little bit more challenging to kind of stay current on things. So you learned that it was really important to communicate to the agencies that you work with business objectives and be really, really clear on the goals and really treat them as a partner. And then we talked about the importance of fit and the right fit and how marketing departments really need to be like a family. And that fit needs to be a culture fit, not just a qualifications fit on, the job description. And that the culture fit is a stronger requirement than the technical requirements, because as you said, you can teach people stuff, but the culture fit, it's either there or it's not. And then you talked about how to stay current. And you mentioned that, training, webinars, all good, However, they don't necessarily make you a practitioner or an analyst. You use the example of an analyst. You need to understand what the needs are of each employee, and then the education that you provide must fit the functional and day-to-day practice. And then we talked about some things you've learned from the past. You've had some great bosses and maybe some not so great bosses. And you really, came back to the fact that the marketing team needs to work like a family and that there's really never a marketing emergency. So even in the tense moments, you get through them, you learn, you fail forward, you move on. And then you learn the importance of escalating things before they spin out of control. And you shared some examples of that and how, again, the marketing department, even if things get a little dysfunctional, when it's operating like a family, you can kind of deal with that internally, kind of like a family deals with dysfunction internally and doesn't share it with the outside world. And so even when you do things like an assessment of some sort, you don't want to label people. You really want to understand how people function within a group. And then we closed on the concept of having accountability for understanding what people's needs are and maybe shortcomings that they have and helping them work through them, and then really leading by example so that you can inspire others to also be accountable for the contribution that they make to the team. So that's my summary. Betsy, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think that summarizes it really well. I'm very excited to see everyone in Nashville in July and looking forward to this.
Yeah, I hope that everyone listening from all around the world will jump on an airplane and join us in Nashville in July. I'll be there, you'll be there, and many, many other marketing professionals, our colleagues, will be there as well. Well, Betsy, where would you like to send my listener online to connect with you and learn more about what you've got going on?
To connect with me personally, you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn. Twitter at Betsy M. Rohtbart and LinkedIn /Betsy M. Rohtbart. Super easy to find me there. I encourage everyone to check out Vonage.com and the Vonage handles. We've got a lot of great content and a lot of exciting stuff coming up.
How about one main Vonage handle?
At Vonage.
There you go. VONAGE.
Yes.
Fantastic. Betsy, thank you so much for joining me here today on this episode of the Social Business Engine podcast.
Thank you so much, Bernie.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Betsy Rohtbart, Vice President of Digital Marketing at Vonage. This has been episode 211, titled Developing a 21st Century Marketing Organization. Now, my one big takeaway from my conversation with Betsy is this. The modern marketing team needs to be diverse in skills, having the requisite digital skills and business acumen with both generalists and specialists on the team. But the most important factor is culture fit. The modern marketing team needs to be able to work in a fast-paced environment with constant change and disruption. Every member of the team needs to be, well, a member of the team. In fact, Betsy uses the family metaphor because no matter the situation, everyone on the team needs to pull together to get stuff done. Remember, Betsy says that culture fit is more important than skills fit because skills can be taught, but culture can't be taught. So, hey, what is your takeaway from my conversation with Betsy Rohtbart, Vice President, Digital Marketing at Vonage? Just visit the podcast section at Vengreso.com, find episode 211, and I'll have links to everything we discussed there, but also share your takeaways. Hey, I want to remind you that the Social Business Engine podcast is available pretty much anywhere that you can listen to podcasts like iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and also Spotify. So be sure to subscribe using your favorite podcast player so that you don't miss any episodes. We publish every Wednesday. Hey, this episode is sponsored by Frost & Sullivan. Vengreso is proud to be a partner with Frost & Sullivan on the 19th annual Marketing Executive Mind Exchange event, Marketing Impact 2025. We, the Vengreso team, will be moderating a think tank discussion focused on creating a consistent omni-channel customer journey. So join us at Marketing Impact 2025, taking place July 16th through the 18th, 2018 in Nashville, Tennessee, where you can mix and mingle with forward-thinking marketing executives and thought leaders. Now, we are an event partner, as I mentioned, so we can extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso subscribers. Just visit frost.com/MAR, M-A-R, and use discount code Vengreso at registration. Hey, I look forward to seeing you in Nashville. And remember, we're going to link that up in our show notes page. Frost.com/Mar will be linked up at our show notes page at Vengreso.com/podcast. Anyway, while you're there on our website, that is, be sure to subscribe to get the Social Business Engine podcast delivered to your inbox each and every week. As I said, we publish on Wednesdays. And if you're in sales, be sure to subscribe to my partner's podcast, Selling with Social, hosted by Vengreso's CEO, Mario Martinez Jr. Well, hey, that is a wrap for episode 211. I want to thank my guest once again, Betsy Rohtbart, Vice President, Digital Marketing at Vonage. This is Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, signing off for now and wishing you continued success on your social business journey.
Thank you for listening to the Social Business Engine podcast. Be sure to tune in again next week to reconnect with Bernie Borges for more insights, inspiration, and practical advice on social business. Visit socialbusinessengine.com to catch even more content on social strategy that will rock your business and your career.